part of the last week's podcast where me and you and Kaylin are just BSing. And we basically start out the story by saying, yeah, well, there's this guy who was a former cop, was Rampart, he turned, used to, Golden Gloves, boxer, used to box with De La Hoya, and some other really good people. And, became a cop and then became a dirty cop. And so I was just listening to us talking about the fact that last week he said his wife was pregnant and she needed to go to a doctor's appointment. And I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, well, that's good. So it was just the three of us that were talking, and had talked about how we were trouble getting guests to make their way all the way down here. And we're going to change that. But so he was supposed to come in this week, and yesterday or the day before yesterday, Kaylin, I said, are we ready to go? I was like, well, no. I'm like, why not? And he's like, oh, he wanted money. He wanted us to pay him to do the podcast. And I'm like, fuck, he came to the wrong three people, man.
Once a cop with a handout, always a cop with a handout. Huh?
I figured I could maybe come up with $50, and then maybe Kaylin could come up with 20, and we could ask you for 5 and offer him 75.
I can give him about $20 worth of Kroger coupons if that would help him.
To be fair, this guy is not a podcast guy. Like, he's been on a couple, one or two, but he's not a podcast. So I don't think he knows how many, and I think he has been paid for all of his other appearances. So I don't think he really knows that, that's not a normal thing. Just to be fair to him, I don't think he's aware that's not a regular thing, is paying podcast guests. But needless to say, when he asked about his fee, I was like, I don't think, maybe come back another time.
Gratitude, yeah.
Yeah.
He earned a favor someday, we will repay this favor.
So now, we don't have anything to talk about.
Well, did you? I was
absolutely nothing to talk about now. There's nothing to talk about. Nothing's happened, in the last couple of days or week or anything, that we've got.
Nothing that would affect you at all.
What's the date today?
The 3rd.
Today is the 3rd, and Val died, day before yesterday or yesterday?
I think it
Probably
was
on the 1st.
I think it was the night of the 1st.
First?
Yeah, because I saw it online, and I thought, oh, this is an April Fool's joke. Because it's all.
It's April. It was April Fool's.
Yeah, and you would see other celebrities saying RMP this, and I saw it for Val. I go, oh, yeah, it's another April Fool's joke, and no, I was like, oh no, this one's real. So it was the night of the 1st. Yeah.
I think that was the night I saw it too, because I texted you as soon as I saw it, and I saw it around 9 or 10 at night, and it didn't look like any April Fool's.
I just saw it on Reddit.
What's that?
I saw it on Reddit. That's why I thought it was. And then once I Googled it, I was like, oh, yeah, no, this is real.
I think that might be where I saw it too, And then I went ahead and Googled and made sure, oh, yeah, other people are reporting it as well. So, it obviously is the case. 65 years old.
Yeah, well, I think I saw it even before you texted me, Jim. And
I'm sure.
I'm like, okay, Val's dead. That really didn't surprise me. Since then, I've had some different publications and some people reaching out, wanting to know if I would do some interviews talking about Val, which I have done a half a dozen of, and but Jim, we wrote when we were shooting Tombstone, we basically wrote quite a bit about Val, and
a lot.
Yeah, and what we used to Powers
about
Booth
Val.
and I used to call Valitis, which
just going to say Valitis.
Valitis was the fawning that George Cosmatos used to do with him, and everybody falling all over themselves to because everybody knew he was
You
giving a great performance.
Yeah, you pointed to a particular moment in the movie where I think it's when you had that drunken rage and they spent all day lovingly shooting Val sitting in the chair. And then when it came time to shoot you, you were out of focus.
Yeah, they shot, if you look at that day's worth of work, basically he doesn't, I don't know, he thinks maybe ad-libbed a line, or maybe he's got a line or two. And he's sitting in a chair the entire time, and he's getting a shave. I guess then he stands up or something like that. So not only did they spend all morning shooting that, they spent most of the afternoon all on Val. And by the time they got to me, it was towards the end of the day, and that's one of the reasons that I liked playing Johnny Ringo so much, was I was going to have a chance to say the words, "I want your blood and I want your soul and I want them both right now." And that was the scene that, one of the scenes that I certainly really was looking forward to doing. And, they just basically shot it in an hour or something before the lights went down. And the camera guys were kind of grumbling, and he had already fired a bunch of George Cosmatos fired all sorts of camera people on that show, but he had fired some camera people already. But I remember the camera department not being real happy at the end of the day. The next day, we went to Daly's, and fucking out of focus. I'm out of focus. I'm out of focus, and it was. I was pissed, and I was really, really pissed that they spent all day on. Go ahead.
Did one of the producers offer to reshoot the scene? Did Jim say that? Jim Jacks?
I was really, really angry about the whole thing, and that's where Powers and I were, the whole Valitis thing, and everybody like, oh, Val, and I think that I was so pissed off about it that at one point Jim said to me, maybe we'll find a place over the next couple days and we can try to recreate that or come in close, get a close up of you or something like that. And I was like, fuck that. Fuck you. Fuck this fucking movie, man. I was busy doing other things on that movie.
Let's get this over with.
As I told,
I'm still working my way through the ERP lives. Yeah.
I didn't say that.
I know that.
But anyway, so people they're talking to me about Val, and the fact of the matter is that Val on that movie was great. As far as he wasn't a prima donna in any way. I didn't ever, he was always ready to shoot. He was always there. He was obviously going to be, I think it's the best role that he's ever done. People talk about the Jim Morrison
I think
thing.
It will be, maybe they talk some about The Doors. But
Well,
I think
he named
Tombstone.
he named his book Huckleberry, I think. And
I'm Your Huckleberry or something like that.
Yeah. And
Well, you tell that story about. I think we put it in the article about the first table reading you had. You came to the barroom scene where you do the gun twirling, but in that sequence, you guys exchanged passages in Latin.
Yeah.
And you didn't know how to pronounce those words. You hadn't really, paid that much attention to it just for this table reading. And he not only knew how to pronounce them, but he knew what they meant in English.
Yep. Yeah.
So that was a clue to you that, he's really, he's prepped for this. He's prepped for it. So
that was a
got to get the shit together moment.
Yes.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah. I was like,
better step up my game a little here.
That was totally that. I was embarrassed But like I said, I had other interests that I was, but so yeah, Val on that movie, I respected the fact. First of all, people ask me all the time about Val Kilmer. Hey, what's Val Kilmer like? What's Val Kilmer like? And I always say the same thing: is like I don't fucking have any idea because I never met Val Kilmer. And
well, you obviously met him. You just never spent a lot of time with him, right?
I never spent any time with who I would consider Val Kilmer, and he never really spent any time with
He was more Doc Holliday, is what you're saying. Your interactions,
and I was there was no interactions. No, we stayed away from each other. There was no interaction.
Well, you did say recently there was one time where you two were practicing that final duel together, just you two out there. Was he kind of being Doc Holliday during that rehearsal you two were doing?
Well, I don't remember whether he was doing the accent or not, but basically the story is that, we had a director who was fired from the movie, and this is a scene that we needed to shoot with George Cosmatos, who I don't even think was there when we shot it. I think we shot it like with a second unit director or producer or something like that.
I think you told me that, yeah.
And but Jim Jacks came to me at one point and he said, listen, you and Val have got this scene that you want to shoot. You guys might want to go out to that location and check it out and maybe rehearse it a little bit. And I was like, yeah, I'm always down for rehearsal. Absolutely. So I drove out there and Val drove out there, and he got out of his car and I got out of my car, and there was never any, hey, Val, like, hey, how you doing? Like, what'd you do last? None of that. There was never that, just because he was one of them. And I guess
you've talked about how in off-camera time you tended to associate with the guys that you were palled with or grouped with in the movie. Like you hung out with Powers Booth and Stephen Lang and the other cowboys. I know you told me just once you knocked on Kurt Russell's trailer and Val was in there. And that was, about what you might consider a social, contact. But other than that, no, you weren't really associating with
and I didn't say
those guys.
I needed to talk to Kurt because of at that point he was, as much in charge as anybody certainly was.
Well, with the director
movie.
having recently been fired.
Yeah.
And it was really Kurt who was kind of holding the movie together.
He was totally holding it together. He was totally holding it together, and they were rewriting stuff, and they were cutting stuff.
Ripping out pages and whole sequences.
One
of your other great speeches got sacrificed during that process too.
Yeah, I don't have my phone here. I was gonna mention that I've already done that on Rosenbaum's podcast. I've already done that. But to answer your question, Kaylin, or to describe to you really how that situation occurred, is that we went out there and there was just a kind of like, okay, do you have any ideas? Do you have any ideas? I don't remember him with the fucking accent and all that kind of stuff out there with me. I don't remember that. And I probably, but we weren't friendly at all. There was no, like, it was like, okay.
Was there any, like, animosity in the sense of, like, towards the role? Like, you're the bad guy. Okay, you're the bad guy. So I don't mean animosity between you two, like, actors, people. I mean, like, because you kind of saw each other as adversaries while you were filming, you were kind of almost like, yeah, we should see each other as adversaries right now, sort of thing. Or was it just
it's just a natural thing that sort of happens. There's just
I don't think it was conscious, but it just sort of opened up that way. It just sort of unfolded that way.
I never talked to him on the set. We never talked, and I never, I worked with him in the saloon when I'm spinning the gun and he's spinning the cup, and we do that great scene. And he was around when I Want Your Blood and I Want Your Soul, and that story. And of course, we had to do the last scene is I'll Be Your Huckleberry. That's the scene that we were rehearsing. and we talked to each other about the fact that we didn't want to do a gunfight that was like every other gunfight that we'd ever seen in every Western that we'd ever seen before. Meaning, why not try it right next to each other instead of being 10 yards and 10 paces and all that kind of stuff that we grew up
circling
on.
each other.
Well, that came in because we wanted there to be some, it's I found page and a half or whatever, 2 pages, but we wanted some. Well, actually, the way they shot it is probably longer, but we wanted there to be some movement. Because it's just us standing there looking at each other, and we're just a few feet away from each other. And that was kind of the first decision that we made. And then we said, maybe we should. And he gave some stuff, I gave up some stuff, and we decided that we would have that kind of circling motion, so we weren't just standing there staring at each other.
When I saw the movie, I thought that had been scripted because it was so different from the standard, hiding behind the corner of the building and running over to the haystack and the gunfight at the OK Corral, old movie version of a gunfight. It was so different from that. The two characters basically right next to each other in a sense, the way some of those gunfights actually occurred,
And even just the way Val has his pistol. Like normally, he has it in the front there as opposed to the side, which is something that I don't think I'd really seen in a shootout like that or a standoff.
I remember telling him or us coming up with the idea that I remember that we used the word intimate. We wanted it to be intimate, and not, and so he comes out, and George Cosmatos, you got to give him credit for the fact that they do that thing where he's in the dark. I think it's Wyatt Earp. He walks out. The first line of it is. Well, I didn't think you had it in you because I think it's Wyatt Earp, and he walks out and he says, "I'll be your Huckleberry," and
doesn't he say? Oh yeah, he says, "Well, Johnny Ringo looks like someone just walked over your grave."
That's after he says, "I'll be your Huckleberry,"
okay.
And then he says that line, and then I say to him, "Fight's not with you, Holiday," and he says, "Well, I beg to differ." And he
play for blood, remember?
Play for blood, which is what I was saying in the streets, when we in that scene that we were talking about earlier. And then I say, I was just fooling about, which of course is the name of our podcast. And he says, I wasn't. Yeah. And that moment for me as an actor, for Johnny Ringo, of kind of not understanding exactly what is going on to,
fuck,
you want to, no, that's what people always think.
That's how I interpreted it. Like, I thought I was getting wider.
It pisses me off. It always pisses me off because a lot of people think I was fucking scared.
That's what it comes up. That's what I always thought.
No, I read it as you were engaged at this point. Oh, right.
Well, it's not until now I've got to go back and go through the lines again, but it's not until I understand, that he actually wants to have a fight with me right then and there. And at that moment of realizing what's going on, I tried to play it, and I tried in the way that I felt, no matter what people see, is like, oh, fuck yeah. Adrenaline starts flowing. Oh,
well,
you
got the
have
opposite.
A gunfight.
There's the snidely whiplash, smile.
Well, I got a big fucking.
Point,
I get a big smile on my face.
Yeah,
so
right.
Don't listen to Kaylin. Like that. I have a huge one of the. pictures that I sign all the time.
Well, it's funny. We were at a Comic-Con this past weekend in Anaheim, and some guy came up to me and said, that smile of you with the crazy eyes, he said, that image haunted me. When I was 13 years old, I watched that movie. It gave me nightmares.
Yeah. Well, I don't, so, but we had that, and then after I was shot, he had dialogue, and I had that kind of where I'm like walking and stumbling, and I kind of come up with the fact. I think they cut one of them out, but I kept pulling the trigger on my Colt and
sidearm
shooting gun, shooting it as I'm walking, and I've got that like bullet through my brain, and so Val and I, we went out there, we rehearsed that scene as two actors who just wanted to do the best that they could with that.
You guys basically choreographed the scene.
We did, of course, we did. Yeah, I don't think, and like I said, when it was shot, I think it was shot almost like a second unit shot. Cosmatos wasn't around.
Was there any particular stage directions in the script?
I don't think we paid attention to them. I'd have to go back and look at them, but like I said before, I don't think so. I think all of the idea that we're standing right next to each other, and the idea that there's movement in the scene and there's an intimacy to the scene was all Val and I. Deciding that's what we wanted to do. So we went away from that rehearsal, and then we came back and we shot it the next day, almost like a second unit shot. It was not, it was, they were off shooting something. I've forgotten exactly what it was. Who was the DP? Academy Award winning, great.
Was it Fraker?
Yeah.
Bill Fraker,
William Fraker, and I think Fraker might have been out there, and I think it could have been Fraker who,
Well, Fraker had directed movies before. He took over Tom Horn, the Steve McQueen's last movie.
Yeah. Well,
he took over directing that from the director who was fired 5 days into the movie.
Well, I think that he was there, and I think that it was. We just used to call that second unit, but that means that Kurt and some other group of actors were working somewhere else with maybe Dana Delaney or something, and they're working somewhere else with the crew. And then you peel off a camera operator and a focus puller and off of one of the camera teams, and you bring Fraker in, and we had some great material, and we had already rehearsed it, and then we shot it, and that scene, that scene is really memorable, and
definitely.
But Val was. I went into that knowing that Val had a reputation for being a little different.
Particular?
I don't know, particular is the right word, but I had my eyes wide open, but because the moment he got out of line, as far as I was concerned, I'd certainly say something. But that was a movie that everybody's got to remember. You hear Joel Schumacher talking about how difficult he was, and there's a number of Joel Schumacher's name comes up all the time on this podcast. But anyway, but he was a decent director at the time, but and he directed him in Batman, and they just fucking hated each other, I guess. Schumacher's all, but I was kind of waiting to see how he was going to, there are people that are prima donnas, and but when you're on a set with Kurt Russell and Sam Elliott and Powers Booth and Stephen Lang, and myself, I better not be fucking around. Don't be, don't be, we're ready to shoot. Don't be in your fucking trailer. We're not waiting on you. That's sort of a vibe. But
you go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that he's always been, he was always, when we were on the set, I don't remember when we were rehearsing the scene, like I said, I don't remember him having the accent then. He might have, but I don't remember it. But always on the set, he was always had that accent going on. And one of the things that I kind of admired him for was there is a substance called glycerin that they use on actors sometimes to make actors look sweaty. Exactly.
Yeah, Veronica Cartwright was talking about how they were spraying that all over her during Alien constantly, and how she couldn't stand it.
Well, and I think it depends on what kind of skin you have, but they used to try to put that on me, and there's two ways to look like you're sweaty. One is to put glycerin on and leave it on, and the other one is to have somebody come up and spritz you with a little spritzer, make your face wet, you do the shot, and then that's it. And so I've had that glycerin on before, and it's fucking horrible. It's like horrible stuff as far as irritating. And and what Val did was he put glycerin, he used glycerin the entire time he was on that movie, because he was always kind of like pale and sweaty.
Pasty. He had to have that pasty, sweaty look.
Yeah, but instead of being spritzed or being able to, like shoot a shot or two with it on, he had it on all day long. And so he used that glycerin and the irritation of glycerin and the pain really of having that on your skin for long periods of time. I think he used that as a this guy's
acting device.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
You allude to that in the article, Shooting Tombstone, that we wrote about how he would leave that stuff on, how miserable it is. But you thought it was maybe a way for him to better connect with the kind of suffering that Doc Holliday was going through with that tuberculosis.
Yes. That's and I saw that, and I just can't explain enough, or explain is not the right word, but I just emphasize. Yeah, thank you. I just can't emphasize. Now I can't fucking say it either. Emphasize.
How about express? That's not as many syllables.
Thank you. Less syllables, always better for me. Thank you. Now I forgot what.
Emphasize. You can't emphasize enough about what essentially how
about Val.
Yeah, it's gone, guys.
We tried, Jim. We tried.
Okay.
But I've always wondered about them. According to Val, when the movie went down and they had to cut 30 pages out of the script, according to Val, it was him and Kurt who were deciding what was going to stay in the script and what was going to go away. Isn't that right, Jim?
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah. And I've always wondered, who made that decision to cut out Johnny Ringo's best scene in the movie, and that was another situation where I went to Jim Jacks on that one, and there was so much craziness going on that set. There was Kurt was trying so hard to kind of hold it together. They brought in another director and a writer to try to kind of just
patch things together, see what they can salvage.
Cut what they had. And, according to people on that that I respect on that show. They didn't use any of Kevin's material that he shot. I had a great. I thought it was a very good scene. I didn't see it in dailies the next day, but I had a great scene with Charlton Heston. At one point, I'm out there looking for. It was before the gunfight at the end, of course, I'm out there looking for Wyatt Earp, and he's holed up at Holder's Ranch. I forget the name.
Hooker was
thank you.
The guy's name.
How could I forget that fucking word?
Maybe
was
if
Hooker's
his first name had been Hope, you might have remembered it better.
Yeah. So, and I went out. I shot this scene, and it was with Charlton Heston, who there's not that very many people that I've worked with before who are as legendary as he was, and certainly at that time. And this was before he was sick. And I shot a scene where we're basically nose to nose. He's a tall guy, but he's a little taller than me, but we're basically nose to nose with me. And when I say demanding in the Johnny Ringo kind of way, is I want Earp and I want him now, and him saying, no, you can't have him. I think he's holding a shotgun, and I'm there, and I got a couple guys behind me, but never in the movie because Kevin shot it. And according to lore, nothing that Kevin shot ever made it into the movie, and so.
And I don't, that scene would not have. I think that scene could have fit.
Well, I think it.
It
depends on. That just depends on the cut and the timing, and you would think that if you go out and you pay for Charlton Heston was on that set for a week or 4 days or 5 days, and I shot a 2-page scene with him. And you would think that if you go out and you pay for Charlton Heston, you'd want a little Charlton Heston in your movie.
His presence in the movie is minimal,
I know.
At this point.
I know.
That's why I'm saying that scene, I think, would have fit because we know Johnny Ringo is chasing after Wyatt Earp at that point. We know Wyatt Earp is holed up at Charlton Heston's place, and so an insert there of Johnny Ringo trying to, force or trying to go around Hooker to get to Wyatt Earp would have made perfect sense, or would have fit perfectly there. It's not like you had to have shot other material for that scene to have fit. So it is kind of puzzling, and it does seem almost like there was a disposition to toss everything Kevin shot. I thought that Kevin shot all of the Charlton Heston stuff. Did Cosmatos shoot anything of Heston's? Do you know?
Well, no, because I think it would have been in the. According to I don't think Cosmatos really had. He just got a director's cut. He doesn't decide what's going to be in the movie and what's not going to be in the movie. I think this goes back, Jim, to our conversations. I think it was Andy Vanya who basically made those decisions because Kurt and he. I kind of tried to reach out to him recently, and I never heard anything back. But I'd like to hear and he's a fun guy. He was just a fun guy. But I would just like to hear, after we shot the movie, George Cosmato, you got your director's cut, but then. Look up the editor if you can, possibly. They had a very good editor on that show, and that editor was known for not wanting actors around. He was not. I've researched him a little bit, and I heard him kind of on a podcast type of situation. But before podcasts, somebody was just interviewing him, and they had a tape recorder going, and he talked about the fact that how he didn't like having actors around when he was cutting stuff.
It's on Wiki, edited by Frank J. Uriost, Robert Sylvie, Uriost, and Harvey Rosenstock.
I forget which one is what are the three names again?
Frank J. Uriost. He's the one that actually has a Wikipedia page. So it looks like
he was an old veteran.
Yeah.
He's done a lot of movies.
And I've maintained
Cliffhanger,
before.
Basic Instinct, Total Recall, Roadhouse, Die Hard, RoboCop.
Boys in Company C.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've always maintained, and people talk about, directing the movie, is that movie was directed by a group of people, and that editor would have been one of them. And Andy Vanya certainly would have been making decisions, I would think. And I've always maintained that, this is why I wanted to talk to Kurt, is that, well, I know that Kurt went from that set immediately onto Stargate, thank you. And he I mean, within days of wrapping, he was shooting Stargate. And there's no way that he would really, I would think, would be in the editing room, or this is like way before, being able to send something over and
digitize edits. No, you couldn't do that.
Giving notes all day long while he's on another set or something like that. And I know that he was immediately working on that show because Powers Booth and I went out and visited him. And I was on that set like about a week after we wrapped on Tombstone. And so people are always, they want to give credit to Kurt for directing the movie. And listen, Kurt Russell is a stud, and he is a great actor. He's always a great actor. He got that movie put together. That movie got put together on his back. That all the changes that were made, he had to make those changes. He had to decide what was going to stay and what was not going to stay. And I give him. I've said before I would never have played Johnny Ringo. Well, actually, just one other note about, I'll go back to that, but one other note is that when I originally got the script, supposed to be talking about Val, somehow I've turned it around. We're talking about me. If I'm not mistaken, Ed Lamato sent me that script, and I didn't know anything about it really, other than the fact that he said to me, Ed Lamato said to me at the time, Kurt Russell is set to play Wyatt Earp, and there's any other role in the movie is open, and they're interested in you for this movie. Which role would you be interested in? And I read it, and I fucking right away said, Doc Holliday. Every actor knows a great role when they see one. And so I said, yeah, Doc Holliday. And about 2 or 3 days later, it got back to me that through Ed Lamato, it looks like that role probably is going to go. They're looking at Val Kilmer for that role. Are there any other roles that you might be interested in playing? And I right away at that time said, yeah, Johnny Ringo. I would like to play Johnny Ringo. And then I met Kevin for lunch in Hollywood. I remember meeting him and us spending about an hour together. And then after that, I got the offer to do it. And, so anyway, it was a very, very, very troubled production. And as we've talked about this before, Jim, that movie came out. Nobody gave a shit about it. Nobody, first of all, it didn't get good reviews. It did not get good reviews. I guarantee you, I remember it didn't.
It didn't. When you look back at them now.
And I am a person who, like, if there's a review on me, whether it's good or bad, I want to see it. I want to know what somebody else is, I don't know, vain. I don't know what it is. But I want to read the reviews, and I always try. between the New York Times, the LA Times, the Hollywood Reporter, the Variety, between the San Francisco Chronicle, Siskel and Ebert, and all this fucking, I could not find one reviewer that even mentioned my name as playing Johnny Ringo. And that movie, when it came out, didn't make a dime. And I believe if you look up box office for 1993, which is when the movie came out, if you look up box office on that movie, it comes in not in the top 10, not in the top 20, not in the top 50. It comes in, I think, in the 70s. Like
86th.
86th?
86th for 1993.
Oh,
yeah.
there you go. 86th box office. And so the idea that Tombstone
There were
was
85 movies. 85 movies did better than Tombstone that year?
I thought it was in the 70s, but Kalen's looking at it now, and it's in the 80s, and it
did end up making, I think, a lot more later. This is domestic box office. It made 16 million, and then over time, it eventually, I think, made 75 as well.
Well, but that doesn't help us out as actors back then. It doesn't help us at all that it's a classic now. 30 years later.
Aren't you getting big fat residual checks from it?
I got residual checks from it, but listen. The Terminator was somewhat the same way. Like nobody knew those movies. People are talking about Tombstone in the same sentences they're talking about Unforgiven.
They really are.
And Unforgiven won what? How many Academy Awards? But when Tombstone came out, it got bad reviews. It didn't do any business. Like Kalen said, it started doing business because people started renting it and liking it and telling their friends about it. And over a 10 and then 20 and now 35-year span, that movie has gone from something that was completely forgotten, just like Kevin Costner's movie. Like nobody fucking watched that one either, It's the whole Wyatt Earp thing, just like, and now.
Well, do you think that might have had something to do with it? Because every once in a while, this happens where two of essentially the exact same movie come out at the same time. So do you think that might have had something to do with that? People it was like, it's the same movie. It's confusing. They're both about the same thing.
Yeah, but ours came out first, and you would think that if you go to a movie and it's a great movie, that you go like, hey, it's a great movie. The reviewers know it's a great movie. The people that are watching it know it's a great movie, and they love it. You would think that the people who reviewed the movie would know a movie that 35 years later, people are gushing about. And they talk about it being, like I said, Unforgiven won 10 Academy Awards. Best Picture.
It won 4 Academy Awards, nominated for another 6.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. I always have a tendency. Best Picture, I think, though, right?
It's
Best
an honor
Picture,
just to be nominated.
Best
They got the
Director,
10 nominations.
Best Supporting Actor, and Best Film Editing.
Yeah, well, and somebody was talking to me about Val and wanting to know about like how I felt about Val and his legacy. They were asking me about, and I just kind of like this whole fucking legacy and actors, like Gene Hackman just died, and of course everybody was interested in how he died because that was, and by the way, when I want to go out in some mysterious way like that. I want to like just fucking walk off a mountain like that other guy did and like kind of be in the news for another 3 or 4 days, not just the one day that like, I want to like a 3, and Gene Hackman somehow was in the news for another like 2 or 3 weeks while they were trying to figure out what the fuck happened.
The long goodbye there. The long goodbye.
The long goodbyes, right?
I still don't even really know how he died, but
I think that his wife, I got the impression, and I haven't really paid that much attention to it, but I got the impression that his wife might have collapsed from, let's say, a heart attack or something like that, and that he wandered around that
hantavirus.
What's that?
She was affected by that hantavirus.
What is a hantavirus?
It comes from like rats
Hantas?
from hanta, Hanta.
Okay.
It's not very common, but it does show up in the Southwest. And there are outbreaks of it from time to time. And apparently she died from complications of that. And he just, wasn't able to care for himself. I guess he wandered around for a week after she had died.
Yeah, well, that's the impression that I got. But my point really is not. My point really is that, yeah, people talk about legacies. And the fact of the matter is I believe in 100 years, let's say 50 years, nobody's going to be talking about fucking Tombstone or Unforgiven. But I'm not even sure 100 years from now anybody will even remember that there were films around. The way the world is going, the way things are changing so quickly, this whole thing about actors living, forever because they're on screen forever, I just maybe that was the way that they felt back in the 20s and 30s and 40s. But these days, I just think it would. Remember when my mom and dad used to watch movies? Remember that? Like back in the day when they used to sit and watch movies, like they used to listen. Like I talked about my parents listening to the radio.
You mean like those things on YouTube? Is that what you're talking about? The movies?
Yeah. What? Yeah, no. They actually used to go to theater. What's a theater? I don't know. Let's go back and we have to do some history. I've for a long time have claimed, and I've been wrong. I'm usually wrong, so it doesn't really make any difference. But I've been telling Jim for the last, ever since we hooked back up again, which I guess is about 5 years, and started talking again, that the movie theaters were going to just disappear. That they just had to disappear, and they're still around. I mean, I guess they're still around. I don't get it that when you can get a movie that is what's the filmmaker that we had on?
Adam?
No.
Ditto?
Ditto.
Ditto Montiel?
Ditto Montiel had a movie that came out in the theaters about 2 weeks ago.
Riff Raff,
right. And it's got a great cast. It's got
Bill Murray. And I don't know who else. I know.
Yeah. It's got a wonderful cast, and now you can rent it. Now you can go to your computer and watch it, and it probably costs you $20 still at this point.
It's usually
but
rental, yeah.
And I never understood that the difference between you're going to pay less even just for the price of watching it, let alone getting in your car, getting dressed, getting in your car, driving, parking, buying a ticket, paying too much money for popcorn and candy, and then like wandering into some like room that it could be packed with people, or it could be like, and I've always heard that fast food restaurants did well throughout the years, like Kentucky Fried Chicken and stuff like that. Not because the food was so great, but because it was just convenient. And there was it just seems, I just can't imagine movies hanging in
It
there.
really seems to be very specific towards the movie. Like these days, the only time, like I love going to the movie theater. I don't have a lot of time, but I will make time for a big movie. Like I think Dune 2 was Dune 2. I really wanted to see. That was a big sci-fi.
Did you see it?
Yeah, I saw it in the theater, and it was fantastic, and I loved watching it in the theater. And another great theater experience is a comedy. Going to a comedy and hearing everybody laugh.
Right.
But comedies these days aren't like what they used to be. So I think they're not releasing comedies in theaters anymore either. Like when I went to the theater and I saw Jackass, or we went to go see Borat, and everybody's laughing their ass off. That's a great experience, but they're just not releasing comedies in the theaters.
When you were in working at the Coffee Bean, you took a picture with a celebrity. Who was that?
Seth Rogen.
Seth Rogen.
Yeah.
Seth Rogen's got a new show.
I just watched the first episode last night, The Studio.
Yeah, I watched.
Oh, is that? Oh,
you can watch.
I was going to ask you about that.
I watched the what we used to call a pilot. It was the first episode, and then I watched you can watch the second episode if you want.
I didn't see that one. I just watched the first one last night.
So anyway, he was nice enough to take a selfie with with Kaylin.
You met with him for Pineapple Express. Yeah, Kaylin.
I didn't meet with him. No, I met what's the name of that director?
Oh.
Very famous fucking comedian director.
He directed Pineapple Express?
He didn't direct it. He was in it, but he didn't direct it. No, I met the director on it. But
David Gordon Green directed Pineapple.
What?
David Gordon Green directed Pineapple Express.
Oh, but who produced it? What's that other name that is big in comedy? I thought like the biggest.
Judd Apatow.
Judd Apatow. I thought it was like his project, and I think it was Judd Apatow that I met. And I went in there, and I think it was kind of like, okay, well, make me laugh. What? Make you laugh? What? Are there any? Or you want me to read something? Are there any? Nope, just fucking make me laugh. You know, I don't know. You might have the wrong guy for that. I saw.
That was the Gary Cole role in it.
It was? Yeah,
okay, but I just remember that because
man.
Seth Rogen was the biggest thing at the time. Superbad was like my movie when it came out. So when you said you were going up for that, I was like, no way.
Yeah. Well, I was excited about it, and but you know that's
Hollywood.
That's Hollywood, and there are a lot of experiences that I've had. I saw. As I was walking out, Michael Madsen was walking in, and I think Michael Madsen's there are a lot of things that we have in common. Our careers we've got some great, brilliant stuff that we were in, and he was Quentin's person, I was Cameron's person, and then we've got some fucking horrible things, some horrible. Plus, he's got like 5 or 6 kids. He's been married.
Well, so I think you do too.
Well, I think I do too. I'm going to count them up. I think he used to like to have a drink every once in a while.
You guys are very alike, aren't you?
And neither one of us was cast in fucking Pineapple Beach or whatever it was called. What else, Jim? What else did we talk about with Val? I remember he just died, so maybe I should. The girls used to call. I remember the girls. Me and Powers used to have that whole thing about Valitis, and everybody's falling all over themselves for Val, and because us being the Cowboys, we were like, well, fuck him, and this and that. So I remember the girls had, they used to call, I don't know, maybe, you know what, mate, it's too early. He's barely in, he's not even cold yet, so maybe I'll hold off. I'll hold off on what the girls used to call him, the girls on that show. What were you saying, Jim?
Well, did you ever see him when you made that movie with his wife?
No, he was there though. He was there from what I understand. And oh God, well, what we were going to do, Jim, and it was your suggestion, which was a really good suggestion, was we were going to spend the next time we did something like this where we didn't have a guest, and we're going to start having guests again via
Zoom.
Yeah. So we'll be doing that too.
I mean, so far I just released the episode today, and people seem to like it a lot. I would like to get to a point one day where we could do both. We could do like a guest and one of these episodes each week.
Hybrid.
Like ideally that's the place where I'd like to get to, because after last week's I had a lot of fun doing this, and even this one today is a lot of fun. A little easier on me, a little more relaxed, and so ideally that's the place where I'd like to get to. But yeah, we're going to start booking people over Zoom, remote shows, so we have some more interviews coming.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That could broaden out the range of topics and that we can get into as
But
well.
yeah, before Val died, we were like, okay, what are we going to talk about on today's
Yeah, and
episode?
we were
And we're going to do a whole thing on Navy SEALs.
Well, yeah, and we were going to do a whole thing on Navy SEALs, which is usually a movie that I don't like to talk about because it was a movie that I thought had the potential. We also had an Academy Award-winning DP on that movie too. You know his name, don't you, Jim?
John Alonzo.
John
the guy who
Alonzo,
shot Chinatown.
exactly. Yeah. And John was great. John was absolutely great, and we had a incredible cast. And Charlie Sheen, who was perfectly sober the entire time, funny, fun, young. He
Contributed a lot, didn't he, to the
he
movie?
didn't. I don't think he really contributed that much as far as writing or trying to change it from what it was, because it kind of originally played into what Charlie was good at, which was fun, kind of comedy, kind of like that kind of stuff. And I just wanted it to be a more serious movie, and I wanted it to be Top Gun. I thought we had the Navy that would just give us like aircraft carrier. Yeah, come shoot on the aircraft carrier. Come shoot in our helicopters. We got a SEAL for everyone to double every one of you and to tell you how to hold your guns. We had the Navy. Joanne was in it. Joanne Wally Kilmer, Bill Paxton, Dennis Haysbert, who just had a very, very wonderful career. Charlie, myself, and the Navy behind us, and Louis Teague, who directed the movie.
Just about sank everything.
Well,
on his own.
There was one point where Mike Medavoy was willing to let him go. And we were like halfway through shooting the movie, and Mike Medavoy ran Orion. Well, I'll tell you. Let me tell you first of all how I got that movie, and one of the things was that I got sent the script, and Mark Harmon was playing the role. Or I was told that Mark Harmon was being considered or was cast in the role, and they offered me the role that Charlie Sheen ended up playing. Okay, so I read it and I thought, this is not very good. This is just not very good. So I passed on it. Okay, and so I passed on it, and then 2 weeks later, Charlie Sheen is attached to it, and Charlie Sheen's going to do it. The role that they offered me, Charlie Sheen took. And I thought, like, oh, Michael, you better fucking, but maybe you ought to take a look at this again and pay a little bit more attention to it. So I then went and, I read the script again, which I still think it needed a lot of work. But then that's when I checked out Louis Teague. And Louis Teague was the director on it. And I started checking out stuff that he had done. And one of the things that he had done was the sequel of the Michael Douglas movie with...
Romancing the Stone.
The Romancing the Stone. He'd done the sequel to it, and I can remember...
Duel of the Nile?
Jewel of the Nile, exactly. And I remember seeing the sequel, and I remember just thinking, oh, this is fucking horrible. This is just absolutely terrible. And I guess he had done Cujo, which, was kind of this small deal. And this is when I'd heard that he had done a movie called Red something. What was that?
You were told he had done a movie called The Lady in Red.
Right.
And you said, oh, well, that's a pretty good movie. Gene Wilder, Kelly LeBrock. Yeah, if he did that movie, then okay.
That's exactly.
That's not too bad. And then you found out that the movie you were thinking was Lady in Red was actually called The Woman in Red. Lady in Red was a Roger Corman movie with Warren Oates about John Dillinger, and it wasn't very good. But you totally mistook the movie. So.
Yeah. And so, but that was
that's different. Never mind.
When he did, when I saw that he had done A Lady in Red, I was like, I remembered it. I didn't know that Gene Wilder had directed it. I just remembered it thinking, oh, that was good. And I just needed something. Plus, there was a lot of money back then. It was right in my wheelhouse of like a lot of money. And I just needed something to push me a little bit, like just go ahead. When I found out he had directed what I thought was to be the Gene Wilder movie, I was like, okay, I'm in. And then, and Jim knows this very well because we spent many hours working together.
That was one of the few times where you called me and said, hey, would you read the script? And I read it and we started talking, and the more we talked, the more we sort of wound up writing notes, spending a lot of time writing up some notes that got passed on to Orion, and we saw that a few of our suggestions got worked into the rewrites of the screenplay.
Well, the problem was that I guess everybody wanted to do a somewhat of a comedy, I guess, or some sort of like deal. And we had worked hard on that, Jim, and we did more. It was more than a few notes. It was a couple of pages, and I remember one of my notes in that movie was I was the lead in the movie, although Charlie got first billing. But I was kind of like the lead guy in the movie. And at the beginning of that movie, my character as a Navy SEAL makes a decision that costs 350 people, American lives. I'm overseas. I'm supposed to snatch some guy with my team, and we go and snatch him, and on our way out, I see this huge pile of Stinger missiles or whatever, some sort of stingers, and I have the opportunity, okay, I'm going to blow these up, and then the bad guys start coming, and I have to decide in my head, all right, do I stick with the mission that I was told, or do I stay here and wipe out these Stingers? And by this time we're starting to get shot at, and I make the decision, no, I'm going to take my men, we're going to be safe, and I'm going to leave the Stingers there, and we're going to go. And then about a third of the way into the movie, the bad guys take those Stingers, or some of them, one of them at least, and they shoot a fucking airplane out of the sky.
747 out of the sky.
747 with like 400 people on board. And my argument at the time to Louis Teague and the writer was that, like, if I make that choice at the beginning of the movie, and it's because of me that I didn't stay and wipe those Stingers out, and they end up killing 400 people, that's hard to overcome. That's just a bad. That's just a bad decision, from an Army standpoint. And so we made that point. And what happened, just to give anybody who knows anything about screenplays and writing, that was a note that I thought, like, I just can't overcome this. My character just cannot overcome being responsible for the death of 400 people. What was it? A seven what, Jim?
It was a 747, and if the bad guys succeed in shooting the 747 out of the skies, then you've kind of lost.
Yes.
That's what the movies are usually about.
And do you remember? And do you remember after we turned in? And this was one note in about 30 that we had. And I had an argument for every note
on the screenplay.
But do you remember, Jim, that what came back from them is kind of we kind of see your point, so this is the way we'll do it?
Yeah, they instead of a plane full of 300 passengers, it was like a plane with a couple of peacekeepers in it.
No. That's not what happened. I thought you knew the story. I thought you knew all my stories. No, it was a set.
No.
Well, however big it was, 747. Let's just say that's what it was, and it had 400 people involved. They came back and they said, "We'll make it a 737. And there'll only be 220 people killed." Right? And that was just like, what, are you fucking out of your minds? What don't you understand? 200, 400, it doesn't make any difference. And what finally ended up in the movie was, and these are all innocent people. And what finally ended up being in the movie, because I kept fucking pressuring them and I kept saying, I don't want to be responsible, not only for 400, I don't want to be responsible for 200 either. And all innocent victims. What ended up being in the movie is they shot down like a small plane that had 4 people that were in the arena that were part of like the diplomatic
diplomatic mission.
Diplomatic or some army people on who knows what. And so that is what I had to live with. But that was very, very. That whole project was so disappointing. I'll tell you what else was like really, really disappointing is that I had a love scene to do with Joanne, and there's like fucking nothing wrong with doing love scenes with like just absolutely
gorgeous women,
gorgeous, sexy, beautiful, smart, wonderful, and women and actresses. For some reason, it seems like actresses are a little not as conservative as most women. They're usually they're more like up for whatever. But anyway, I was going to get to do this big love scene with her, but I was so unbelievably like frustrated making this movie that the day that I went to we were going to do the love scene, I had this huge thing on my lip. What do you get when you like
a cold sore?
A cold sore, like a herpes,
like a herpes blister.
Yeah, and it was huge, and it just like showed up the day that I was supposed to do the love scene, and I can remember thinking like, nothing is going right on this. Nothing is going right on this show. Like, man, this is just like horrible.
They did from the start.
Yeah. So anyway, we were supposed to be talking about Val. This whole thing was supposed to be. Somehow I can always turn everything back.
That's close enough.
What's that? Oh, we're talking about his wife. There you go. That was close enough. Yeah. And I
bring it full circle.
One thing that I want to say, because I kind of want to wrap it up, but one thing that I want to say is that Val was a member of a church called Christian Scientists, if I'm not mistaken. That's the name of the church. And that church is one of, the thing about Val is, Val got cancer. And instead of doing what Michael Douglas did, which was as soon as he found
treated for it,
go get treated for it. He went in and had chemo and radiation therapy. Michael Douglas did like immediately. And Michael Douglas has been in half a dozen movies, maybe even done that series that he was so popular for a while.
Method,
after that.
Definitely.
And he's just, a wonderful actor anyway, but he dealt with his cancer, and obviously it's not come back. What Val did, because of this, I'm going to just call it what it is, stupid ass fucking religion that he prescribed to, basically they believe in like spiritual healing, and they don't believe that you should go to doctors. I looked them up on a website before I came down here because I wanted to talk about this, and now they kind of say it's okay. But I remember 2 or 3 people, young people, that had like needed to get their tonsils out or fucking had a hernia or something, end up dead because they were part of this religion and they wouldn't go see a doctor. And so what Val did was Val just let this tumor grow and grow and grow and grow. And he was covering it up with scarves, and most people knew that he was sick, but and I read someplace that Michael Douglas went to him and said, dude, what are you doing? You need to do what I did. And Val was like, no, it's not my religion. And so therefore, from what I understand, the tumor got so big that it blocked his breathing abilities. And then they had to go in, they had to cut it out, just like you would normally. Somehow it didn't work, just to pray real hard for it to go away. It didn't work. And so they cut it out. They gave him chemo and they gave him radiation. And they saved him, but because he waited so long, that's why he lost his voice, and that's why he's, not with us anymore, which is really sad. And what did I say the name of that religion was? Christian Scientist? Is that
Christian Scientist? Yeah.
Yeah, Christian Scientists. And like I said, if you Google them now they've kind of backed off the whole you don't go see doctors.
Not as rigid,
but it was very rigid back when I was a kid and I was young, because I knew not a lot, but a few young people who died from something that would have been very simple. And I think that. Val always claimed, not always, but he claimed that he lost his voice because of radiation and chemotherapy, which is fucking bullshit. Listen, the guy's, like I said, he's not even in his grave, but that whole religion, I don't have any sympathy for that, or anybody who believes the body's just going to heal you. Forget about chemo. Forget about
or enough prayer will do the job.
Enough prayer will do the job. Right, exactly. So let me see. What can we go out on something that's a little bit more? Doing an Eddie Furlong there. My shirt was up and my belly was hanging out. When Eddie came and did the show, his shirt was up, and that was like one of the second or third ones that we've done, and none of us quite noticed it, and but I noticed it when I saw it, and then when Eddie saw it, he noticed it too, but. It was what it was. But anyway, so we're gonna wrap this up, Jim, and we can talk more about Navy SEALs, and we can talk about Billy Friedkin, and if we need to do this again. But hopefully we'll get somebody on Zoom and we'll have that experience, and we'll just keep having fun. I enjoy talking to you.
I got some other movies too. There's some comments on our YouTube channel from last week's episode. They want to hear about K2, which I don't think you've even mentioned yet.
I can talk about K2. Well, I can talk about myself for 2 hours easy.
Well, they also mentioned a movie that you did
K2
with Jason.
Is another movie where I did some notes on that script.
Okay.
They also did a movie with Jason Bateman called A Taste for Killing.
Yeah.
I didn't know you worked with Jason Bateman. I love Jason Bateman.
Well, Jason, at the time, I didn't, Jason was not, Jason was a child TV star.
Yeah.
He was a big deal. And the other guy in it is a wonderful actor also, who was in the Spielberg movie, Icy, what is it? The guy, the guy who finds the alien and brings him into his house.
E.T.?
The kids, E.T. Yeah, Thomas. What's his name?
Henry Thomas, the
little boy.
Oh yeah.
Well, he's a little older then. They're both teenagers. I got about 15 years on both of them, and I play this tough guy, and I've got some fun stories about that.
Someone else wants us to get William Forsythe on the podcast, which
well, Forsythe would be great.
Yeah,
Forsythe is
great.
Now Forsythe is a true wonderful actor who has also worked in some wonderful movies, and I think for a while he was not not out and about, but recently I think I've seen that he's working. But yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of people that I think that we can reach out to now that, like, Forsyth probably doesn't even live in LA. So now that we're able to, that we're going to make that choice of going to,
he's got Forsyth has one of the best lines in Raising Arizona, the Coen brothers.
Oh, he's fantastic. And
which I actually used earlier, in talking to some federal prosecutors about explaining how he and John Goodman got out of prison, and he says, "We released ourselves on our own recognizance."
Yeah, well, listen, if anybody is listening to this and they're interested in hearing from somebody, I think just because I'm another actor that I have a tendency to have
their contact info.
Yeah. Get and kind of, there's a mutual respect that goes on as compared to somebody who's just asking questions. It's more like swapping stories and having fun and stuff. So we'll try to get as many fun people and as many really wonderful actors as we can. And Forsyth is certainly one of them. Forsyth is he's a real deal, and he's been in some wonderful stuff. And he did a movie that I wanted to do so badly, which I know we got to wrap this up, but I got stories also just about American Me. Which I was up for.
The, James almost picture where he got threatened by the cartel and stuff, right?
Yes. Yeah. And there's a lot you can talk about with that. One of the people that I was meeting with, because I was up for that role. I thought I was going to play the role. I thought I was playing the role, and then all of a sudden I wasn't. But I was meeting with a woman who basically was a kind of a go-between between the gangs and the production. She was one of the people that was murdered. And there were like 4 or 5 people that were murdered by the Mexican mafia, is what it was, because of the making that movie. And Edward almost had to disappear for 4 or 5 years, and I think carried a gun ever since. So anyway, all right, so well, this has been fun, except for Val, and it hasn't been quite as much fun. But I've enjoyed this, and thanks, Kaylin, for doing this, and Jim. I know what we're paying you, and
he's got a couple Kroger gift cards, I think is what he mentioned at the beginning.
Well, I'll keep my eyes open for those Kroger coupons, and I'll send you a few up. And hopefully we'll have you next week too. Okay. I think we lost Jim.
Yeah, I think we did. Yeah, it looks like his thing's off. That's all right.
Okay. All right. Goodbye.